Faithful Prayer and Service, a reflection for the fifth Sunday in Ordinary Time. Our first reading comes from the book of Job, 42 chapters that tell a tragic tale. Just 17 of its 1,000+ verses appear in the Sunday lectionary, 6 of them in today's first reading. We have all heard something of the suffering of Job and have, perhaps, cited his patience, but few of us have actually read the book. This might be the perfect time. Exploring human integrity, suffering, the mystery of God, and trust, Job might be the original "Why Bad Things Happen to Good People." I recall plowing through it on an airplane nearly 30 years ago in preparation for a presentation on the language of the Psalms. What, you might ask, has Job to do with the book of Psalms? For one thing, the two sit side by side in our Bible. For another, both contain lots of lament. Psalm 30 lays out a story arc that lines up closely with Job's sad tale and provides an excellent introduction to it. I have long held in memory a sung version that captures it well. In privilege and prosperity I said I never would be moved. I was a mountain strong, your favor had established me. All in a sudden you were gone, your face was far from me. In panic, in terror, I fell to death. You are my cry, you are. To you I make my case. What profit in my death if I go down into the pit? Can you be praised by dust? Can stones be faithful? Hear then this heart and show your loving kindness now to me. The book of Job, like the book of Psalms, has much to teach us about what passes for faithful conversation between Israel and God, and invites us into an intimacy with the Lord expressed with the same bold candor. When life goes to heck in a hand basket, we need not be afraid to tell God the truth about how we really feel. Number 1, God already knows. Number 2, God waits, ready to embrace us as we pour out our hearts. And number 3, our willingness to open the darkest and scariest corner of our hearts means we trust in the one with whom we share our dark and scary thoughts and feelings. In human relationships, the ones we trust the most see the worst of us as well as the best. Do we trust God less? Job represents Israel and us as he complains to God in his misery. Though his words may strike our ears as harsh and decidedly irreverent, in bringing all things to prayer, he holds up his end of the covenant conversation. Today's Psalm 147 strikes a subdued tone, hopeful and grateful, but with a concrete memory of suffering. It provides a fitting response to the existential angst of Job. St. Paul gives us a glimpse of his deep sense of vocation. His determination to carry out the mission assigned to him without reward and regardless of his willingness on any given day can best be called dogged. He speaks of an obligation imposed, a stewardship entrusted, and becoming all things to all to save at least some. He does what he does for the sake of the gospel, with the hope of sharing in it when all is said and done. Any recompense will be at God's discretion. In today's gospel, Jesus meets the unrelenting demands of his vocation to proclaim the reign of God in word, preaching, and deed, healing, driving out demons. The promise of supper at the home of Simon and Andrew prompts the healing of Simon's mother-in-law. Word quickly spreads, bringing the whole town to the door. Faithful to his mission, Jesus heals the many gathered, regardless of his own weariness at the end of a long day. Next morning, though, Jesus slips away before dawn and finds a quiet place to pray. We can imagine the panic that ensues when the disciples wake. Their cry, "Everyone is looking for you," sounds a little bit pitiful, brimming with relief and pent-up pain. Over time, they will come to understand the necessity of Jesus going off to pray and even be invited along, if only to fall asleep waiting for him.